We all know somebody who owes their life to the NHS. A few years ago, I had a relatively serious car accident, and the level of care that I received was second to none. I want to make sure that we care for the NHS in the same way that it cared for me. And this is why we need to address the fact that by 2020, it's forecast to have a £30 billion hole in its finances. Evening, everybody. My name's Helen Kimber, and I've been working for the past 6 weeks with AdviseInc, trying to help hospitals save money. So modern medicine has transformed all of our lives, and the NHS has been at the forefront of delivering these miracles of science to us all. But how do we continue to fund a service that has higher and higher demands? One way we can help is through effective procurement. This is where AdviseInc come in. They are the architects of a price benchmarking system which has already saved the NHS over £700 million. This is roughly equivalent to 2,600 doctors or 8,300 nurses. And this is about the workforce of one of our largest hospitals, which is Guy's and St Thomas's. So you'd be forgiven for thinking that a huge body like the NHS pulls together and makes bulk orders to take advantage of their huge purchasing power. But this doesn't always happen. This leads to huge variation in the prices that hospitals are paying for identical products. I wanted to try and understand this variation and the factors that contribute towards it. This is important for AdviseInc because this will allow them to offer practical advice to hospitals on how they can improve. So intuitively, you'd think that larger hospitals get better prices, and they do. But if you look at these two hospitals, they're overpaying for their products about 15% of the time, but they are vastly different sizes. In addition, these two hospitals are about the same size, but one of them is overpaying 40% more times than the other one. So what are the factors that contribute towards whether a hospital is getting good prices or not? In my model, my model predicts these 5 different factors, and so some of them the hospital can do something about. They have control over what supplier they use and what supply route they do. Other ones, like hospital type, they can't necessarily help what their specialism is or the demographic that they serve, but they can use this to help change policy and funding decisions. But by far, the most important thing that a hospital can do to help its procurement department is use AdviseInc apps. And this can be seen very clearly in the data. So here's an example of a hospital who back in 2016 was on average overspending on the products that it bought. And then by 2017, they're able to drive down the prices that they're paying to become one of the best performing hospitals in the country. If you overlay the trend of their use of AdviseInc apps, then you can see that the point at which they start driving down prices is exactly the point that they start using AdviseInc technology. This is an example of another trust who barely engage. You can see that orange line barely comes off of the bottom of the chart. And this is a trust that is consistently overpaying and doesn't really make any changes from 2016 until now. And finally, a last example, this is a trust that was doing pretty good in 2016, but then they started to overpay for their products, but then they were able to reverse this negative behavior by using AdviseInc technologies. So the impact of this work for AdviseInc is that they have validation that there is a link between the use of their technology and the effectiveness of a procurement department. We've built a more detailed picture for them of what are the factors that contribute towards whether a department is doing well or not, and they can use this to advise hospitals on practical ways that they can make improvements. Furthermore, this model can be used as a springboard to make predictions about opportunities that hospitals may have to make savings in the future. But the take-home message is that a data-driven hospital gets the best prices. Thank you for listening.